Kia ora, welcome to Politics from Canterbury. This is the third episode. Today we're talking about Winston Peters and his 5 policies. We've got Kevin, I'm a sort of historian, worked in Parliament 15 odd years. Got Jared, he's an historian, and we've got Liam, another historian. So sort of a historical perspective, and it's just a free-flowing sort of a discussion. But we do want to start with a news story, and I'll just lead it out, and then I'll get some input from Liam and Jared. So there's a documentary out at the moment, and in the promos it features the great man Winston Peters, the leader of New Zealand First, and underneath that you may have seen it says something like mis and disinformation is rampant. Again, I'll show you. Mis and disinformation is rampant, and there's a shot of Winston Peters. Also, around the same time, this particular documentary has a shot of the leader of the ACT Party, David Seymour. I know it's both quite quick. Is it positive, really? Is it really, is it showing Winston Peters and David Seymour in a positive light? This is election year. We're about 90 days out or less now, about 85 days out from the election. If you were the leaders of these parties, would you be amazingly pleased? Liam?
I'd be annoyed that with the kind of association that my party is somewhat, indicative, embodying this disinformation or misinformation. But do you think it's possible that they're just trying to include...
Be inclusive?
Because they did have the Jacinda Ardern with the swastika, So obviously Jacinda Ardern's not going to be happy about that, but to actually, to assume...
She's not running for any sort of office in New Zealand, is she?
Well, they've also got James Shaw with a black eye, and he comes across as being a victim of, I'm guessing, someone that was... his head was basically filled with disinformation and went and smacked James Shaw in the face in 2019?
I'm in two minds.
You're in two minds.
It's either that they're like the RNZ is trying to associate David Seymour and Winston Peters with disinformation, misinformation, or they're just trying to be as inclusive as possible because they've got other.
Well, Chris Hipkins isn't in the. There's no Chris Hipkins in the opening titles.
I just think it's because it's like. Maybe the footage was taken, before he was elected. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm going to have a guess that those leaders aren't super happy because
I wouldn't be,
they're not super happy because the initial one, the promo I saw last week for this particular disinformation documentary had both Winston and David Seymour, but the current one only has Winston Peters because David Seymour looks to have been excised from view. So it looks like someone from ACT has gone and got rid of Mr. Seymour from it. Okay, so we'll move on from our disinformation, misinformation, but what we're going to talk about is New Zealand First had a conference. They introduced a few new candidates, one of whom actually was a doctor that was anti-mandate. Was it anti-mandate? I'm not sure she was anti-vax.
She was anti-mandate. Yeah.
Anti-mandate. There is a difference.
Big news for her.
Liam, could you just explain the difference between being anti-vax and anti-mandate? Because I think Winston Peters is, by the way, vaccinated.
Difference between being anti-vax and anti-mandate. Anti-vax you'd say that you shouldn't be putting you shouldn't be getting the vaccination because it's, I don't know, some people might say it's got 5G nanobots in it or it hasn't been tested.
It doesn't, by the way. We don't want one of those clips turning up.
But and then the anti-mandate would say that they're not exactly opposed to the vaccination or the inoculation process, but that you shouldn't be forced into doing it. Yeah, so to sum up very quickly, anti-vaccine would say that there's either no merit or that it's dangerous. Anti-mandate would say you shouldn't force people to do it.
Okay, well, New Zealand First does now have, at best we know, an anti-mandate. So there's probably another...
We're not going to have much bearing on any sort of policy, really, is it?
More reasonable of the two, to be honest,
Yeah, well, in reality, here's another thing. With New Zealand First, quite often you'll have Winston Peters, and at the moment he's got Jonesy as his sidekick. So we've got the duo. But you will also find, and I put a lot of work into this with my paste gun and stuff. Here's some New Zealand First candidates you'll probably never hear of or have never heard of. This chap here, Mahesh Bindra, was actually an MP. Mahesh, he was an MP. I never heard of him, and I'm a political geek. We've got Lawrence Turnbull. They're both actually from the world of corrections.
Former screws.
They're corrections officers, thanks, Jared. Let's just use the correct terminology. These people do a dangerous job. Liam, how many New Zealand First MPs can you name? We're going to have a quick thing.
Shane Jones.
Shane Jones. Yeah, Come on, mate. We've done a couple of takes.
Shane Jones.
So it's still Shane Jones. Okay, Jared, can you get
Mahesh.
Mahesh Bendra. Okay,
Yeah.
so he's a candidate. There's a couple more out there. I remember,
Without the piece of paper, how many can you name?
okay, without the piece of paper, Jenny Marcroft is coming back.
Yeah.
Mark Patterson, I think he was an MP. He's coming back. Mahesh Bendra, I've just remembered him.
Good.
Shane Jones and Winston Peters, of course, and okay, that's about it. Yeah,
Good.
But the point behind that is you don't really need to know lots of people.
Yeah.
Okay? And the other point behind what we're trying to espouse here is, so what if they've got an anti-mandate doctor? It's Winston Peters that rules the roost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, she could be number 10, 15 on the list.
Yeah.
And sorry, I have forgotten her name because it's hard to remember New Zealand First MPs' names. They don't stick around, right? They don't stick around.
Yeah, except when he Peters himself.
Yeah.
When he Peters.
Winnie P.
By the way,
Winnie the Pooh.
his correct name is the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Sorry, yeah,
He's not
yeah.
yet a Sir, so let's have a little bit of respect. What do we think is some of the policies coming out? Liam, you've got the list of policies coming out, mate.
I've spoken a lot. Jared.
Jared.
He's
Freedom, democracy.
freedom
Sorry.
and democracy. Pretty vague, pretty open, pretty on the line, you might say.
Remember fighting with the racist separatists?
Oh, yeah,
Fighting-
fighting-
Fighting racist separatists. Yeah.
which has
That's
earned
number
him the
number
title
one.
of safe-hating Māori, which is not really true.
Not
I
really
don't
true,
think.
no.
Crime. He's coming down on crime. Wants to name the gang members as terrorists.
Would
Don't
you,
really think that's going to fly, though.
The banks?
Most people. He's going to take on international banking and financing.
that's number two. Number 3. What's number 3?
Leveling up education and health.
Well, it's just generic.
It's a game.
It's going to be made better.
This is a GTA, right? GTA Online. It's going to put a bit more shout
and his absolute
and his favourite and most treasured base, helping the seniors.
Helping the seniors is number 5. I think it's a little bit low
Across
for
the
Winston.
board.
I'd probably have put it up. What do we think of Winston putting crime number 4? Because in recent polls, crime's actually number 2 in New Zealand is concerned. So perhaps he should lift it up. Liam?
I guess what benefit would come of him by labelling the gangs as terrorists or getting them officially recognised as terrorists? What is the benefit?
Well, I think this is a petition. We're looking at the policies. All gangs should be designated terror entities.
But does that mean that they can be, like you can bring in,
They
like
can arrest them without needing a
Yeah.
I suppose you could use
You
the
bring in the Five
Terrorism
Eyes.
Suppression Act,
Yeah.
which it's pretty powerful. You could use the Terrorism Suppression Act in regards to gangs. I'm going to say I don't think it's going to happen.
You two might know more on this. What's Tamaiti and his crew back in
Yes.
when?
The Eurowear
They were designated as
I believe so.
terrorists.
I wouldn't know. I
They
don't
shot
believe
the
they
flag.
were. No, they were not charged. They
They
weren't
shot the
charged.
flag.
They weren't charged under the Terrorism Suppression Act. Okay, we're going to wrap this up because we don't want to talk to our viewers forever.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say, New Zealand First got a lot of policies that I guess some people might like and some people might be terrified of. I'm just going to say, do you actually think, I honestly don't think all gangs are going to be designated terrorists, even if Winston Peters, it's not going to happen.
Just one of those minor party sort of crazy policies they throw out there every now and again.
Well, I'm not going to call anyone crazy, and I'm not going to, use words that are disableist there, by the way, Jared. But I'm going to
being
say
hyperbolic.
I'm just going to say that a lot of New Zealand First policies and a lot of the policies that some of the minor parties put forward aren't going to happen because let's just look very briefly at tax. Greens come up with the wealth tax. Labor says it ain't happening on our watch, or Chris Hipkins says that. So my guess is let's just I'm going to throw it out. If Winston Peters gets back, he's going to be looking to be foreign minister, and maybe Jonesy, his sidekick, Shane Jones. Sorry, Shane Jones could be maybe some sort of minor level minister of economics. The rest of the people, whoever they are, we'll never hear from them. But I also think New Zealand First has come back. Quick wrap up: is New Zealand First coming back after this particular conference? Liam and Jared, fire away.
You first.
Do some
They
chatting.
got 100,000 followers on Facebook, and that's like just over 5%. So I think they're coming back.
They're coming back.
Assuming that every one of them is of voting age, New Zealander, and can vote and will vote.
Actually, we're finishing off. We wrote down the numbers of social media followers. So, Jared, give us the numbers, or Liam, how many numbers?
1.1k 100k, 119 119k on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Facebook,
And
and
then
64,000, yeah.
64,000 when I'm 64,000 on Twitter for Winston Peters. But also, let's not forget, I'm suspecting that there's probably a lot of New Zealand First supporters on the Telegram, organising presumably some,
secret protests or
I don't know, anti-mandate, pro-mandate, something to do with the mandate. They're on the Telegram, and the Disinformation Project is going to find out exactly where they are. Anyway, thanks very much for listening to this slightly rambling New Zealand politics or Canterbury politics. We'll be more onto it next time.
Yeah.
Good night.